Good evening. I call to order this regular scheduled meeting of the Jefferson County Board of Education. Welcome. It's good to see all of you here this evening. Madam Superintendent, I believe we have some special guests to lead us in the pledge.
We do, who Mr. Hillman will introduce.
Come on up.
We have some eager CW Shipley students to lead us in the pledge.
All right.
Hold on just a second. He's going to introduce you. Well, welcome. Invite all of you to please stand and join us.
But perhaps you'd like to introduce your students.
Yes, I would. We have Malia Muck. She's a 5th grader at CW Shipley. Malia is a super hardworking student. When we're principals or teachers, we always say, never give up and always keep trying, even if you don't get something at first. And Malia is a perfect example of that. She's super hardworking and always puts forth her best effort every day. So there's Malia. In 3rd grade, we have Joel Morgan. Joel is described by Mrs. Butcher, his teacher, as super persistent. He also never gives up. He's also like a networker, because I had to cover indoor recess the other day, and Joel kind of bounced from all these different activities. He was at the car mat with a big group of people. Then he went with a female student and played Guess Who. And then there was another boy who kind of needed somebody to play with, and there was Joel playing Battleship. So he's a crowd pleaser and super helpful to all of his classmates. And we have Grace here, who I don't know real well because she's in kindergarten, but I just met her, and I really needed her to come say the pledge because she is in a super happy mood every day. She gets out of her car in the morning and always says, "Hi, Principal Hillman," and you're immediately in a good mood as soon as you talk to Grace. She's super excited in class. She told me that she knows how to read all this stuff because these words, she knows them. So she breezed through her book and told me all about her favorite color, pink. And I learned that Joel and Grace have the same birthday, September 25th. Just learned that 30 seconds ago.
Yeah, birthdays
coming up.
And we have some parents over here. If you want to scoot around this way to get some better pictures, please, come on.
All right, guys. Ready now?
I
Pledge allegiance
say now.
Yes.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Well done. Mr. Hillman, those are some outstanding students. Thank you so much for sharing them with us. Great job. I believe she'll be back.
Yeah.
We have a couple of presentations.
Yes, sir, we certainly do. First and foremost, go ahead. Are you going to introduce?
I was.
Go ahead.
All right. We have Bill Radcliffe today.
Mr. Radcliffe, always good to see you, sir.
Thrasher Architects, and they did our survey on a new piece of ground that we're about to buy. So, leave it up to Bill.
Thank you, sir. Turn this around. Ralph asked me if I had some electronics, and I said, no, it's just old school. Just an easel. And
It's okay, you don't have to worry about that getting hacked or anything like that.
okay, thank you. What I want to do is just briefly go over this Alta survey for the Strider property.
Now, this is the property under consideration in Ranson.
Yes, sir.
Correct. Yeah, this goes back just to briefly update, and this whole process started back in March of 2016. We presented a year ago, this past August, the formal findings of 7 sites that we worked and selected and presented to the board with the help of Mr. Dingus, with his knowledge of the county, and also Thresher. The Thresher Group is a diverse design entity. We have a lot of different values and engineering expertise. We have a big presence here in Jefferson County as well for infrastructure. So we relied on them a lot as well to give us information on infrastructure for all these sites. Where we wound up was in our presentation initially back August a year ago, the Strider property was the #1 priority site that we recommended to the board of the 7 that we presented. And here we are now. We've done the ALTA survey, which is an all-encompassing survey. I learned this myself. I wasn't really sure what the ALTA part of that meant, but I did learn that it's an all-encompassing survey that is really crucial and critical for the Board of Education in an endeavor to purchase property. That was done at the request of the board and through an agreement with the help of Mr. Mike Funk, Steptoe and Johnson, working with him and coordinating both the legal side of this as far as the description of the property and the other legal parts that come into play with the overall survey. All of that is complete. I had the pleasure of seeing both Mr. Osborne and Mr. Cable at the West Virginia School Boards Association's conference on Friday. There was a few little revisions that, excuse me, Mr. Funk identified. I told them surveyors aren't good spellers, and there was a couple misspelled punctuation that they had to correct, but I think all that's been resolved. Talking with Mr. Funk through emails, I think there are still a few issues that he's working on with the town of Ranson as far as zoning goes, but as far as the survey itself, it is complete. The ALTA requirements were all met. There are no issues. They found no cemeteries. They found no right-of-ways that weren't recorded initially. So everything is in the right place as far as the survey goes. We're just waiting now on Mr. Funk to finalize the issues and zoning issues that he has with the town of Ranson. So if there's any questions, I'll be glad to try to answer them. If I don't have the answers, I'll get them for you.
Thank you, Mr. Ratcliffe.
Yes.
Questions, colleagues? So the map we're looking at is our contract is for partial 1 and partial 2, and you're also showing some of the additional.
Yes, sir.
That remains with the current owner.
Yes, sir. That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, if you'll notice that what the county is considering in their purchase and acquiring are these 2 parcels right here.
Mm-hmm.
This electric easement, could this be of any benefit to us?
It just depends on how much service is there. What you're going to need for a campus facility is a 3-phase service, and I don't know. This is probably more of a residential type service, but one good thing is that it is there, so it might help expedite working with the power company to improve or increase the service as or if it's needed. I don't believe, excuse me, there are any other utilities, infrastructures that were noted on the site. So everything else with regard to the ALTA survey was cleared and good.
Great. Mr. Ratcliffe, thank you very much.
Yes, sir, you're welcome.
You and your team have done an outstanding job
Thank you.
throughout this process and helping us identify the most suitable land in the county for schools.
Well,
and
it's been a
facilities.
pleasure and a privilege for us to be involved in this and working with your staff and the board in getting us to this point.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
congratulations and best of luck to you in your endeavors.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, next we have Keith Moran. He is our coordinator of maintenance, and he's going to review the summer work list, and he's also got a little review on there. Everybody has one in front of them.
Is that what this is?
That's the stapled, jumbled papers that I put on right before. So what you have in front of you is breakdown by school, including bus garage and this building, as well as OLC, the maintenance shop. It breaks it out by whether or not, and the LSIC had requested it, whether or not the principal had mentioned something, whether or not our own maintenance department visualized it and felt to put it on there. And this is a compilation of what transpired through the summer. You'll see that some things are still active, and the best example of that as of today would be Harpers Ferry Middle School. The scoreboard finally got put up. It's up now. As far as working and electronically, we'll check all that tomorrow and make sure that they're able to start their home games. We missed one, by the way, but we coordinated that and worked that out, so they'll be able now to officially.
Won, right?
Yeah, I can't answer that. I don't know. But you'll see if you go down through, just some brief highlights out of it. It's a pretty broad list. It's pretty intense, and for just knowing that my short time here and how much we actually did accomplish this summer before school started or still going on, there's a lot, and cranking it out. The biggest thing that I will update you on, because I was asked, is with North Jefferson and the roof. The project actually today we did a walkthrough on the roof. We have some small things that they're going to do with just some areas that I feel that they've missed. There's actually one area where the tapering needs to move about 4 foot, so they're going to do that. It'll actually not then. It's our only puddling situation right now, which is not that big of a deal, but I asked them to move it, and they're going to. We actually had 3 decking areas that needed to be replaced, and that happened in the last week. We got down to basically the official deadline, and they were like, yeah, we got 3 sheets of decking. I was like, all right. So we only lost out on 3. But as far as cooperation, as far as everything, if you even go out there, I said at JLT today that I'm going to bring you the before and after. They did a drone, and I couldn't get my the video of it yet. So once we do, I will bring it and show it to you. In case, if you want to go on the roof, you're more than welcome to. But it's probably a little bit easier to see that. So that's where we stand there, and everything did come together with the preschool rooms, and we were moving along at that building. I don't know. There's a lot as you go through the list. I'm happy if you got questions about it.
So this presentation is in response to a request from the board to see what work was completed over the summer by school. Also, as you can see, they did a good job of both incorporating the feedback that we're getting from our constituents in identifying things, and also the extent to which our maintenance team is proactive, in that everything you see in the maintenance column is something that they identified in their walkthroughs of the buildings as something that needed to be done, and proactively took advantage of the time to fix. And I can also attest from the storm last week when Pat and I were out at North Jefferson and were able to stand in the gymnasium and hear the lovely sound of rain bouncing off the roof, that that project has been an enormous success from the standpoint of the constituents in North Jefferson. So.
Thank you. Questions?
Where are we with roof repairs at other places? Are we in pretty good shape, or?
I actually was talking a little bit about that today. I haven't assessed everywhere yet. I'm going to start compiling a list. I know we're in September, but I'm going to push it to October. And the only reason is because we got a couple other things I want to get grass going. Get the grass growing with them. But October, and start all that so I can assess all those and come back and say, hey, this is where we're at.
Thank you.
At North Jefferson, I know when I was out there a day or so before school opened, there was some paving project going on as well.
That's completed. Paving, they did to do the whole basketball court side as well through the back lot. That's done. The only thing that will be finished up tomorrow is all the, lack of a better word, the mudding that's out there with the dirt and leveling that out so we can get grass growing.
Okay, great. Well, this is certainly a reminder of how busy your department is over the summer, and we appreciate your diligence. What is there one issue that stands out that you're most concerned about getting addressed quicker than anything else right now?
The one I want to get finished that's still active is the Blue Ridge sign and get that just totally done and off the plate. We ordered it and all that good stuff, and it takes 12 weeks for them to fabricate. So I mean, it's not something that I could snap my finger and have here. So I'm making phone calls tomorrow to figure out where we are in the timeline of getting it here. We're ready, we're prepped, but we just need it here.
Okay, great.
And then those folks can be happy that they have their sign now, since it's been patiently waiting.
Any other questions, comments? Mr. Moran, thank you.
You're welcome.
Madam Superintendent?
The only comments that I would have would be to offer my condolences to the board, staff, and families of Hardy County on the loss of their superintendent, Dr. Matt Dotson, this past weekend. He was a very, very well-regarded superintendent and, quite frankly, human being. So I'm sorry for their loss and his families.
Approval of minutes, last regular board meeting, August 28th. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any questions, clarifications? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Citizens' comments. We welcome and are happy to see that we have some members of the community sign up tonight for citizens' comments. We invite you to address the board at the podium, and we ask you to limit your comments to 3 minutes. And we'll take them, I hope, if I did this correctly, in the order that you signed up. Ms. Atkinson?
Thank you. Dr. Gibson and members of the board, good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak before you tonight. I am Linnea Atkinson, and I am the president of Jefferson County American Federation of Teachers. I do stand before you this evening representing over 275 teachers in the county. I would like to speak to you about the proposed changes to Chapter 7 of the Jefferson County Policy Manual, specifically Section 5.1, the Lesson Plan Policy. With the proposed addition of letter F, which states, contain evidence of differentiation strategies and active student engagement. Every day, every week, every year, teachers are asked to do and accomplish more with less. Less time, less resources, and less support. This is one more thing that teachers are being asked to do that takes away time from providing instruction to our students. If the addition to Chapter 7 is adopted, this will take away valuable instructional time. Please trust and know that teachers in Jefferson County do differentiate their instruction and constantly seek active engagement from their students. Jefferson County has some of the best educators in the state, but by asking them to detail every single thing they do does take away the time that they could be spending with their students. The West Virginia legislature feels so strongly about the time in front of students that in the code it states, teachers must be free of unnecessary paperwork. Myself, AFT Jefferson, and the many teachers that commented on this policy feel that this is just that. With that said, I would like to draw attention of the board to the State Code 18A-2-12. It states that lesson plans are intended to serve as daily guide for teachers and substitutes for the orderly presentation of the curriculum. Lesson plans may not be used as a substitute for observations by an administrator or in the performance evaluation process. A classroom teacher, as defined in Section 1, Article 1 of this chapter, may not be required to post his or her lesson plans on the internet or otherwise make them available to students or parents, or to include in his or her lesson plans any of the following: teach and retreat strategies, right to learn activities, cultural diversity, color coding, or any other similar items which are not required to serve as a guide to the teacher or substitute for daily instruction. I know, I'm sorry, I'm reading the whole code. The legislature finds that classroom teachers must be free of unnecessary paperwork so that they can focus their time on instruction. Therefore, classroom teachers may not be required to keep records of logs of routine contacts with parents. Let's get the rest. In closing, it is Jefferson County AFT's position that the addition to this policy concerning lesson plans is in direct violation of the state code. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Ms. Terbergen?
Good evening. My name is Jessica Terbergen. I am representing Jefferson County Education Association as the acting president since our recent president, Rhonda Reynolds, resigned. I'm actually speaking on the same topic. We have had several of our members also show concern in the new wording. I'm going to just read. I was hoping I would remember, but that is not the case. About the proposed revision to Chapter 7 of the Jefferson County Schools Policy Manual. Many of the educators are apprehensive about this new wording. JCA actually believes that planning is a vital part of instruction and recognizes that the language added is to ensure that lesson plans contain evidence of support of differentiation strategies and active student engagement. And we don't feel it totally oversteps West Virginia Code 18A-212. However, we do want to make sure that the board recognizes that additional requirements to lesson plans can become cumbersome and take away their effectiveness to be a daily guide for teachers and substitutes for the orderly presentation of the curriculum. JCA would gladly offer our expertise on any further revisions to instruction policy and do encourage you to reach out to us at any time. And that's it, short and sweet.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Brown.
Thank you. My name is Althea Brown. I'm a resident of High Street, that's across from the Charlestown Middle School, and I'm raising some complaints about two subjects. One of them is skunks. And skunks have taken over some of High Street neighborhood, making nightly activities such as walking, taking out trash, treacherous events. It makes it impossible to do activities at night, and it's a nuisance and you could say a menace. And many neighbors believe that skunks represent a public safety issue, and I feel that the Board of Education needs to do something about it. And I have the name of the agency who would trap skunks and what have you. The second is a simple solution for a parking problem. We had a parent-teacher night at Charlestown Middle School, which was a nightmare. There was a one lane for cars going to and from the schoolhouse. Residents having a hard time getting out of their driveway. So I would like to make two recommendations to the board for their solution. I would hope you consider these. That you have 3 nights for a parent-teacher night one for 6th grade for one night, another night for the 7th grade, and another night for the 8th graders. Or, if that's not possible, either tear down the fence and extend the parking lot to make a little bit more parking easily. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Obviously, it's important to hear from neighbors who have to deal daily with our facilities in our neighborhood, and I know many of us know from being there that parking is an issue. I appreciate you sharing some recommendations with us.
I was there that night as a parent, so.
Yeah. To our representatives from AFT and JCEA, since this particular item, I believe, is on the agenda tonight under unfinished business, correct?
Yes, sir.
And so we can discuss that, and of course we will when we get to that issue. But is there anything that you want to say about this now?
Yes, sir. Actually, and it may ease their mind. And I didn't have an opportunity to have a conversation. First of all, congratulations, Mr. Bergen. I believe that you'll be a very good, positive representative.
Yeah, we look forward to working with you.
Those were I appreciate for both AFT and WVEA. Both they and their constituents submitted respectful, thoughtful comments about how we could improve things. And one of the things that you'll hear from Mr. Blanc tonight when he speaks about it is that we are going to recommend removing that from the policy. It was never intended to be an onerous requirement. It was simply, part of it was us trying to acknowledge that that is an expectation. We've been having these ongoing discussions about how we need to be clear about our expectations and support of teachers and lead our staff development in that way. But if our faculty feels that this is onerous and we're overstepping our bounds, that's not the way to have that relationship. And I deeply appreciate that both of you have had the discussion of, we see where you're going with this, and we don't disagree about the content. We don't disagree that it is our responsibility to differentiate, and it is our responsibility to actively engage students. We simply think you need to find a way to do it that doesn't make more paperwork for us. And so I very much respect that. That's off the table, and we will sit down. We've sent out a notice to the personnel representative organizations starting in end of September, I believe. We begin our every other month meetings as we did last year so that we could talk through issues with them, and that's been enormously helpful in this process. So with Chapter 7, it's a very large overhaul, and so we're taking our time. We're not in any hurry. We want to get this done right, which is why we put it out for comment, and we'll take those back and make revisions, and that is one of the most immediate revisions. We heard that very clearly.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
Consent agenda. Any revisions or to the consent agenda?
There was a single revision of a date.
Yes,
on
the
there.
day for person a 235-day contract versus 240.
Right, we had made an error on the number of days, and that was the new JROTC instructor.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Questions?
Is that under the personnel section?
Mm-hmm.
You know what number it is?
I'll give it to you.
Okay.
I promise.
Hearing none, all in favor of the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you very much. Okay, does that take us down to unfinished business?
Yes, sir, it certainly does.
Okay, great.
Good evening. I wanted to go ahead and address the updates to Chapter 7 after we received the comments. And as you heard, we received probably about 10 or 11 comments, and one of the comments was about we should do away with homework. Just felt like it wasn't an appropriate thing to do, which that could be a whole different debate on how we go about with homework and all.
Sounds like one of my sons may have said.
The other ones were all related to the 5.1 about adding the Differentiated Instruction Act and student engagement in the policy. And Dr. Gibson said, I think if you look on your on your copies there on board docs. There's a few typo types of things. They're in green. Anything that is green would be changed, but there's really just two parts I want to call to your attention. 5.1, which did state that lesson plans would contain evidence of support for differentiated strategies and effective student engagement, and so that was we are recommended to take that out. And I think part of the reason that originally came up was OEPA, which is no longer in service for the state, the Office of Educational Reform and Audits, they would cite us on that for not having that. So we thought, hey, this is our opportunity to do that. But at the same token, understanding the teacher's point of view too, of not trying to tax them with extra paperwork, because we realize our principals are instructional leaders. They do walkthroughs through all the classes, and they can see those types of things and give that feedback to their teachers just as well, of how you're differentiating, or how you're keeping the students active and engaged. So I know Dr. Gibson and I both talked and think it would be appropriate to remove that from the policy. But, the other part was just because we have dual credit, 6.3 toward the back of the policy. There would be a contradiction there, because originally our former policy said that the guidelines for obtaining college credit did not apply to the 24 required credits that a student would get, and so that would just leave elective credits. And our dual policy basically says the exact opposite, so that was something recommended striking that. That's like I say, is back on 6.2. That those are the only two major changes that, from what you've said before, that you've read before. A couple of them are typos, where maybe added an S to a word or something like that, or made a he and a she where we had maybe he or something down like that. But those are two changes. So I don't know that it's an important policy. Maybe go back out for that 2-week review. I'm thinking, just because there are two changes we're recommending that we got feedback on, but certainly.
We are not under a time constraint for this, unlike several policy changes that were forced by the state to make within a certain time period, one of which is our next item on the agenda. We are not under a time constraint for this one. Of course, we would very much like to get our policy revised and cleaned up, but we don't want anyone to feel like we're rushing them. So if the board would like for us to incorporate these two changes and put it back out for additional feedback, that's certainly well within your purview.
I personally think that we probably should do those corrections and then put it back out for 2 weeks.
So that doesn't require any action on our part?
No, sir, it certainly does not.
Just remains an unfinished item.
Right. We will, however, send out a new notice so that folks know that those two changes are in there.
But this is, I guess, in many respects, the chapter that is the heart and soul of our mission in instruction, and it's getting to the goals that we've discussed with you. It's important to progress, and we are, but it's also important to give everyone an opportunity to provide some input. So I think we're comfortable with that. And again, we appreciate both our teacher representative groups already engaging and providing some helpful input on this. Any other questions or comments?
Just one quick comment on the dual credit. It states in here that the application is available from the guidance department, but the student has to be accepted by either Shepherd or Blue Ridge. Is that not correct? I mean, don't they have the final say?
But we do have to your point, our guidance counselors have the applications for them.
Right, but I mean, it doesn't say anything in here that there's an actual application process or...
And this is under 6.
About the last part of the way in the back of the policy.
I mean, it's kind of obvious that if you apply and you are not accepted, you can't take it, but this doesn't say anything in here that there is that additional step.
So you'd like for us to be clearer that approval is necessary so that no one's confused?
Obtain an application from the institution in the guidance department, or just some...
Just simply so that it's clear that that institution has final approval as well. It's not just us.
It's not their sole, they don't have the discretion. It's the university still has to accept
Correct.
the admission.
We can certainly make that edit before we put it back out.
I just have one other question too. When I looked at the graduation requirements for social studies, if you get bogged down, it's my understanding that you can actually take AP Psychology, and it will fit in for, is it U.S. History? You know, Ms. Ross, which one that is? I don't remember, but I know that it does qualify for that, and I'm thinking, are there 6 or 7 other kinds of those things that we don't, you know, it seems, yes, you can use it for social studies credit. And so it's one of those weird things.
Okay.
It's out there.
We can put it under little known facts.
So, yeah, exactly. But I'm thinking if, you know, as we look at
Gaming the
this,
system.
how many more of those might we have that, you know, where do we add them? Is it important to add? How, you know what I mean? There's this, and I don't know how much further we dig, how many more of those we will find in our wonderful bogged down things. But, you know, how much information goes on here? How much do we have to rely?
We rely on our guidance counselors to know what fulfills those requirements.
Right.
Although, to your point, we could do, and part of what we're trying to do is to keep policy fairly clean so that it doesn't change very constantly. We could put in there an SOP that we have the guidance counselors do so that they could update it regularly. Something that says these, you know, for a list of courses which substitute for for a list of things which substitute for course requirements, see this SOP, and that way they could update it without necessarily having to come to the board for a vote if those are changed.
I just think too that would be helpful to them because there's an awful lot of students in those buildings, and
That
to
could
be
go into
able
program
even
of studies
to,
possibly.
right. And if you get a new guidance counselor in, as we have several times in both schools, they may or may not even know that that's available, and just because they haven't had experience with it yet. So,
Mrs. Skinner, can I just clarify you, Ms. Skinner? Just want to clarify. So we have to participate in dual credit courses. Students must obtain an application for the program from guidance and recommendation from the principal or designee. Then we have the criteria. So what did you want to see different? I know, Dr. Gibson, you probably know, but I'm checking for understanding on what would you like to see different on that?
From the principal or designee and acceptance from the university.
Okay.
Or however you want to phrase that.
Thank you. Pretty good.
Okay, so these proposed revisions to Chapter 7 are going back out for public review, and we would expect it to be on the next agenda for approval. Okay, great, thank you. New business, we have, before we, so we have policy 2419?
Yes, sir.
I know that we can stay in order. I know that Mr. Reisenweber is here. I don't know if we want to move that ahead and address that. Is there a, what is policy 2419?
Policy 2419 is the law that governs special education in schools, and there were some changes to the code which you, as a board, are legally required to adopt prior to the end of September. So it is simply a notification.
I think as a concerned member of the public, Mr. Reisenweber needs to hear that. So let's proceed with item A.
I'm happy to listen in.
he just wanted to see you dance, Cindy. That's awesome.
This is just.
Get your Fitbit on.
Please.
All the way? Thank you. I will be brief. Yes, it is 2419 was out. They made changes by the state. It was adopted in July and told to us that it takes effect this August. As policy and regulations, we are to bring it in front of the board for your acceptance of the changes to 2419. You have the PDF with the yellow highlighted changes throughout the entire policy, which is approximately 110 pages for your viewing.
Suppose we don't accept it.
Then we get to write our own. I mean,
which must meet the
Which I'll be
exact same
going now.
requirements. Exactly.
Are there 3 or 4 highlights that are important for both parents and the board to know?
The changes to the class sizes, page 68. Look around there. That should be our student ratios have changed for level 1, 2, and 3. They've gone up to 12 for a 1 and a 2 for 2 people in the classroom, which is an increase. They've also made changes probably a couple pages before that where I think it was where they changed the ratios for special education students to general education students in the classroom for teachers. 30%, no additional staff is needed, and then it jumps to a 50%, which leaves us a kind of gray area where there needs to be additional support in that classroom. Knowing also that we had a conversation with the state, Jeremy Brunty, who does our audits, has also stated that students, unless they get direct services, do not need to be counted in that 30%. Speech students, students that, maybe they need help in English but not math, do not have to be counted as a 30% of that class. I'm not sure if that making sense. We're also having of course, it's taken effect in August. Our training with the state has been scheduled on September 27th. So that is our training that the state is coming up to do with us. On the new changes for 24-19. But those, I think, are the 2 major, a couple minimum due process ones. Anything that you noticed? I say sorry, calling you out, sweetie.
Okay. I
Sorry.
think that's the big highlight.
Those were the big ones that kind of hit us like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Anything to add to that?
No, sir. No, sir. Those are by far the ones that will affect our teachers and staff to the greatest degree. And we have not made significant wholesale changes because despite what may feel like a strain to some of our staff, we continue to remain far below the state maximums in terms of caseloads, which quite frankly are horrendous. 30 to 1.
30.
Yeah, which
for a
is
caseload.
Sounds really tough for.
It do.
And how does that compare to other state requirements? Other states, they have similar type ratio requirements?
They do, quite frankly. Unfortunately, they do. Most states have requirements that do exactly that. They tier students out by the degree of services that they get, level 1, level 2. You spend more than 50% of your day in a self-contained setting or less than 50% of your day in a self-contained setting, the percentage of services that you receive. All of them have some ratio in terms of that. 30 to 1 is on the very high end of what a caseload should be.
And that takes it from, where was it currently?
We actually have kept, it was 30, it stayed 30. They did not increase that as a caseload for a special educator. We as a county have kept it down to about 13 across the board for each special educator. And we are actually in the, one of the few counties in the state that do that. As I've gone to, they
out of necessity.
Yes, out of necessity.
Yeah.
Been forced into. Although I do think that we had some concern on the part of our teachers that when the ratio changed, that we would suddenly place a great deal more special education students into their general education classes, and they would be required to adapt and not feel comfortable with that. I think they've seen that hasn't happened. We will continue to have co-taught classes for any student who's capable of taking advantage of that. That's the best place for them to be, to get the greatest access to content. But I don't think that anyone has felt some loathsome burden from the changes.
No, not that I'm aware of. We've had several conversations with principals as well. And again, everything is based on individual need. There is no cookie cutter. So we do still support our schools and our staff as much as we can.
Thank you. So the issue before us is to approve the new state policy and to implement it as part of our.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Can I ask one other question?
Yes, please.
On page 55.
Okay.
when it talks about documentation of services and it talks about the extended school year, the services, and highlighted in yellow is must. So is that the change? Okay, so if it says it must consist of activities developed to maintain critical skills identified on the IEP, developed for the academic year. So does that mean essentially if you are in 5th grade and you have an IEP and you're in extended school year, then you are required then to have a 5th grade teacher to develop those critical skills? Like what would be the change of what was not happening that they felt they needed to change that to must?
What we actually implemented, the lesson plans reflect the students' IEPs. Extended school year and special ed, we are working on the goals that you have on your IEP. So the must is that we have created lesson plans based on your IEP, not his, yours. And that is what's being worked on. And that we are showing progress and that we have a beginning, a pre-assessment, what we've worked on, and where we are.
At the beginning and then the end of the summer?
And at the end of the 3 weeks, and giving that report and adding it to the IEP, to the folder, and giving it to the next year's or current. So we're working on that. And
about
that's a
what
must.
are the numbers in ESY for our IEP students, about our special education classes in the summer, about what is the ratio there? Is it 13 as well? Is it less in the summer? Is it, how does that usually work?
We have an it's caseload. It's by class, and it's by grade level, and it depends on who is coming. So that varies. So it's that actually, probably about maybe anywhere from 5 to 10 at the most. And then we have the site administrator that oversees and monitors all of that.
Okay. So if we have like 5 to 10, though, they could be anywhere from 1st through 5th they come?
And we separate those out. I believe we had 8 or 9 teachers.
Okay.
And we had, I believe, under about 85 students that attended this year.
How many special needs students do we have altogether? I never have known that number.
Oh, no? We have approximately, let's see. All right, let me switch gears. We have about approximately 690 speech students. We have, altogether, we have about 13, anywhere from 1,250 to 1,350 special education students in the county. We go up and down, but that's about our count.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve or adopt policy 2419?
So moved.
And a second. Any further questions or comments? If not, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. And now, if...
Now you dance back across.
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
And if there are no objections from the board, I recommend we take item C next and then return to the rest of the order. Yes, I think we should take, let's take C and E, and then we'll really mess up the alphabet here. Okay? Any objections? Hearing none. Mr. Reisenweber, it's always good to see you, and the floor is yours.
Always good to see you all as well. For those of you that don't know me in the group, I know most of you all do. John Reisenweber, I'm the director of the Jefferson County Development Authority. I was about to chime in when Mr. Radcliffe was up here talking about, when you brought up the power line question about whether that would benefit the school system. I'm here to talk to you today about something that's going to benefit the school system as well as that property that you all are looking at. So what I'm here to talk with you about today, I know, Scott, you've been privy to some of this discussion because you are the liaison from the school board to the Development Authority. And Gary, I know you've had some experience with this as well. You've sat in that seat as well. So I think you all, I know you two, and I'm sure everyone in the room recognizes how inextricably linked what you all do and how important it is to what we do. I can't attract a business into the community if we don't have a good pipeline, a good school system, good training programs for our young people to eventually become employees and workers in facilities. So I think the fact that we've landed Roxel here in Jefferson County speaks volumes about the work that you all do and the attractiveness of Jefferson County to business development, particularly, I think in this case, foreign direct investment, which is what we call investment when we get an international company that is looking sometimes all over the country for a facility, and they decided to land right here in Jefferson County. So we're very, very excited about this. This is a $150 million investment, I think outside of the casino, probably the largest development project that the county's ever seen, at least as far as I'm aware. $150 million. It's about 130 to 150 employees. We had an opportunity to visit a very, very similar facility that they have in Mississippi. That facility is out of capacity, and they need to get this up and running so that they can take advantage of the growth that they're seeing and the markets that we have close access and proximity to. They make a product called rock wool. Rock wool is insulation. It has a better R rating than your typical fiberglass. It has better moisture barrier protection, better noise rating, better smoke or fire retardant ratings than your typical fiberglass insulation. Basically what they're going to be doing is it's made out of rock, and it's very common in Europe. Probably has about a 40%, rock wool probably has about a 40% market share in Europe, and it's actually it's almost like a accepted trade name. So, you know, when you ask for a Kleenex, everyone knows you really need a tissue, but you call it Kleenex. I'd like to have a Coke. Everyone knows, was Pepsi okay? Pepsi's fine because it's kind of like Coke, but rock wool is sort of the same thing in Europe as it relates to insulation. So we're excited about this. They're going to take down about 120 acres, give or take, of the Jefferson Orchard property, which is a 400-acre orchard, which is no longer orcharding. I think a lot of you all know where that is. It's over there across the street from North Jefferson Elementary. That property is about 400 acres, and they're going to take down about a third of it. The state is fronting upwards of somewhere between $10 and $12 million in infrastructure to the site. We need to get water to the site. We need to get sewer to the site. This is going to also expedite getting the natural gas line that we've been working on, my operation's been working on since its inception in 1979. This community's been talking about needing natural gas. We know for a fact we lost out on economic development projects because we don't have natural gas in Jefferson County. It's something I made a priority when I came here a little more than 5 years ago. So this actually will become part of the Phase 1 project of the Mountaineer Gas project that you all may have heard about. It's been getting a lot of press. The system in Martinsburg that Mountaineer Gas currently operates is tapped out. Procter & Gamble is going to take the rest of the capacity. They're out of gas. So we have to build a pipeline to bring in, and this will be part of that Phase 1 project. Originally, Jefferson County was going to be Phase 2 and Phase 3. So this will get the gas line deep into the county in Phase 1. So we're excited about that. I know there's a lot of talk about water and sewer particularly in the county. I want to make sure everyone understands that the cost of this infrastructure will not be paid for by the ratepayers. So if you're a PSD customer, your rates are not going to go up because of this. If you're a ransom ratepayer, your rates are not going to go up because of this. This is going to be solely funded by the usage that the company's going to use. So their sewer bill will pay this over time. Their water bill will pay the water bill over time. And we have no gas ratepayers on gas in Jefferson County, so the rest of the state is going to pay to help us run this gas line into the county. So probably on the whole about $15 million worth of infrastructure that's going to be pumped into the county, and a lot of it's going to run right close to your all's property. So I think you all are going to have access to water and sewer at that campus at a much reduced cost because Roxel's basically going to pay to run that water and sewer. And my understanding is it's not fully engineered yet. If it's not coming right down 115, it's probably going to be pretty close. There's only so many ways we can get to and from the Charlestown treatment plant. So it appears at first glance that you all are probably, the school system, that property that you're looking at for the next campus, will benefit from the infrastructure investments going to be made for this. So what I'm asking for you all to do today is to undertake the necessary evil that unfortunately in my business we have to do to compete, and that is to abate taxes. You're not allowed to abate taxes under West Virginia law, so there's a provision that allows for it to be done so that we can compete, and that's called a pilot agreement, which is a payment in lieu of taxes agreement. There's one I'm aware of that was done on the Norm Thompson building that has since expired. That building's now back on the tax rolls. The interesting part of this is, well, why is some folks might ask, why is the school system involved in this, approving a pilot agreement when the county actually lays the levy? You all have taxing authority. Because the property's in the city of Ranson, of course, this municipality also has taxing authority. So the county commission has to approve it. The city of Ranson has to approve it. We asked the school board to approve it. The assessor's got to sign off on it, and because the sheriff has the duty to collect the taxes, we also include the sheriff. So all of those entities have signed off on this agreement, and we're hoping that you all will do the same so that we can finalize it. So to get to the good part, I think we've negotiated a very fair and reasonable payment in lieu of tax agreement for the company. If you look on the last page of attachment A, that's the good part. You can see there in the first 2 years, as you know, we're always a year behind. They need to be online in 2020, so you can see there in 2020 they're going to make a payment of $225,000. Then the full abatement will kick in. You'll see 5 years of zero tax from 21 to 25. On the personal property side, you will see that actually for 7 years. And part of the reason why we have to more heavily abate the personal property is because states like Virginia, which we compete against on a regular basis, does not charge that tax. So in order to level the playing field, especially when 75 million of the 150 million is going to be high-end equipment, that's quite a tax bill that they wouldn't have to pay if they were going to Winchester. I don't like having to do this, but keep in mind, just to give you an idea, the BMW plant in Alabama got over $300 million in tax incentives. There are now over 8,000 people working in that plant making good money building high-end BMWs. So that's the kind of thing that we have to do sometimes to attract investments of this nature. Nobody likes it. We all have to pay taxes, and they will certainly pay their fair share by the time this thing gets fully up and operational and this thing expires in 10 years. You can see on the back end they wanted to backload the agreement. So you can see there, you add all that up, it's just about $2 million over the 10-year over the length of the 10 years. So it's an average of about $200,000 in taxes that we'll be getting over the life of this pilot agreement. I pulled the tax bill for the property now. Where did I put it? It's about $8,000 is what we're getting now. There's a tax, there's a farm use exemption on it. I take that back. About $8,400 on the entire 400-acre parcel. That's what the county's getting in taxes. You all get about 80 cents out of each dollar for the school system. So you can see the difference. In year one, 2020, you're going to get 30 times that amount in 1 year of what they're getting now. So if you see that when you get into the $180,000, $725,000, $815,000 towards the end of it, we anticipate that this probably will be a seven-figure taxpayer by the time the tax agreement expires. You don't make an investment of this nature unless you're going to keep the plant around for decades. So we expect that this plant will be here for a long time. They're a great company, good people, long history in Europe. They take their carbon footprint very seriously, and we're pleased and optimistic that this is going to be quite a success. So the request before you today is to approve the agreement in totality. As you can see, attachment A is where the nuts and bolts and is what everyone wants to see. So in addition to pointing out the infrastructure improvements that are going to be made that will probably benefit the school system, there are a lot of other benefits. The 130 employees, the average salary is going to be somewhere in the low to mid $40,000 a year range. That's a pretty good wage for this area. We did extensive wage studies in the 4-state region around the area to get a good number there, and we think we compete very well on that front. The other thing is I want to mind you, this is this is only a third of the site. This is only a third of the site, and we're getting this kind of revenue. Keep in mind that all the infrastructure now is going to be there for the other 270 acres, as well as any other additional land that might be in the county outside of the city of Ranson. That 400 acres was annexed by Ranson. So this is really going to tee up that area of the county very well for economic development, as well as everything else that's along the line of where the water and sewer are, which is going to obviously run right down Route 9. They're going to, Highways is going to put millions of dollars into improving the road, turning lanes onto old Route 9 near where the school is to make sure that the trucks coming in and out can get out in and out safely. Highways is going to pay for that as part of their contribution to the project. So everybody's throwing in, everybody's giving a little, everybody's going to get a little, and we're pretty excited about it. So I'm happy to answer any questions to the extent that I can, and as always, the Development Authority really appreciates what you're doing, because I can't do my job without you all doing your all's job, and I think the school system does a great job here in Jefferson County, and we're proud to talk to employers about the good work you all are doing.
Thank you, John. Questions, colleagues?
Yeah, I'll start off if you don't mind. John, with the pipeline, water and sewer coming through and being right next to our new property or close there, thereby. Now, are we going to be entitled to hook into that?
Absolutely.
I mean, that's going to be public, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. The State Development Authority, the State Development Office will be fronting that money, and that will pay to get the infrastructure installed. Now, the gas is a little different. The gas lines actually be coming from the Martinsburg area, so it won't run right now, since it's part of Phase 1. The only part of the gas line is going to come, and it'll come most likely in the Route 9 right-of-way, which is going to be a lot less disruptive to neighbors. It's going to come into easement that's already in place. It'll go right to the site. It'll feed that site. So we'll need to extend it from there to the school site when the time is ready to do that. And so I want to separate that from the water and sewer. We think the water and sewer looks like is going to come right down 115 or right down Route 9. It'll be very close to the property from what I understand. And absolutely you'll be, in fact, the repayment schedule is kind of predicated on more people hooking in. There'll be an alternate mainline extension agreement on the sewer, so anybody else that hooks in will go back to paying that debt back. Your sewer bill that you pay will go to paying that debt back sooner to the state and recoup their investment. So anyone that actually, we want folks to hook onto that line. That's going to expedite repayment. The state wants people to hook onto that line. That'll expedite repayment on both the water and the sewer. So absolutely, yes. Sure.
Okay, you brought up another possibility there with the gas line coming in. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how much it would cost to extend it. Do you know how long it would be? What's in the plan to extend it farther in? Because, of course, with school buildings, they eat up electricity and fuel oil like you wouldn't believe.
Right, absolutely. In fact, when we were looking at that feasibility study, the school board was one of the stakeholders. You sat in on some of those meetings, Scott. I know you did as well. I think what will probably happen is that will fall to Phase 2 as originally planned. Because this was, we kind of striking while the iron's hot, because the company's here, Mountaineer looked at their projections, looked at their existing system, what was in the existing system in Martinsburg and what was coming down, and felt like they could feed this facility in Phase 1. So as far as a cost, estimating what a cost would be, certainly North Jefferson's going to be very, very close. I would think that would be practically not expensive at all to hook that school into. I'm assuming it would be a case-by-case basis, and we'd have to talk with Mountaineer about what that cost would be. But the fact that we've already got the easements already laid to get the pipe into town, the original plan was Martinsburg would get taken care of, Procter & Gamble would get taken care of. That includes running the line out of Pennsylvania into Maryland, under the river, under the C&O Canal, into Hancock, running all the way through Morgan County into Martinsburg, bolstering that system. That's Phase 1. And then Phase 2 was going to run it all the way down 9, pick up the business park, hit 9 and 340 head that way, and there's also some chatter about running a line down 480 to the Shepherdstown area, provided those folks are wanting that service. I know the Route 9 corridor and the 340 corridor. We're hearing from the business community and the municipalities that they would like to see gas as an option for those areas. So a lot of it, I think to answer your question more directly about the gas, my assumption is getting it into Jefferson early is just sort of a benefit to get into phase one. I think the rest of what's going to come into Jefferson County as it relates to the gas will probably still remain in phase two, unless, of course, if you do start to build out that campus and you need it, I think we can work off of the line that's going to be coming in from there on a case-by-case basis. I mean, I'd love to see it come into the business park. Our manufacturers definitely want to see it it's going to lower their costs of operating without a doubt, and it'll lower your alls as well. So, but as far as plans to expand off of that right now, just the existing plan as is proposed under the project. So
let me ask you this: how we had a rock wool plant here in Jefferson County. I don't know if you're aware of that.
I'm not aware of that.
Built Standard Lime and Stone in Millville, where the quarry is. That was one of the products that they produced there was rock wool. In fact, my dad worked there when he was a young man in the wool plant.
I did not know that. That's very interesting history. I'm going to have to bring that up with my Danish colleagues.
They eventually went out of business because when fiberglass came in, fiberglass doesn't settle. Rock wool does. Now, I wonder if they have a production way of making it so it doesn't, because it's heavy.
They do. I'm sure the technology it would appear to me from what I saw in Mississippi that the technology has changed drastically from what you're speaking of. They have an emollient, and I don't want to get out of my comfort zone on the technology, but they have some things that they mix, oil that they mix, and a flocculant that actually fluffs it up, and they have a laser that you can cut it, you can mold it. I mean, it comes out in perfect, 16-inch, going between your 16-inch studs. They can do it on 24 inches, and it could be either 6 inches or 5.5 or 3.5 inches, depending on the depth of the stud. It didn't look like it settles to me. I mean, I don't think it's similar. I'm sure I would think it's very different than what the product is that you were talking about that was made there. I mean, this company's been in business since, I want to say, early 1900s. So
they must be doing something.
Yeah, and they've got facilities in several different countries. But the process was very, very impressive. It was very clean. You could eat off the factory floor. I mean, I was amazed at how clean it was. So I'm sure the product has improved over the years. I've been in that fiberglass plant at Taylor Station Road off of 81. I wouldn't want to work in there. It's nothing like what I saw in Mississippi, and that's one of their competitors. So I think we're getting the better one by far. But I don't want to speak to the technology piece of it, that I really can't answer your question as well as I wish I could. So sorry for that.
Okay. Yeah, because I know what the old process is.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's very advanced. I mean, high dollar equipment, mechanized. It's amazing. So.
Okay.
Other questions?
I have a list if you don't mind.
Go, please.
Okay.
You may have some of mine.
All right. The first question is the capacity. We were talking about if it would be enough capacity. And that you said that it's going to be provided by the state development was providing the money to do it, and that if we tied into it, it would expedite the repayment of the line. So, is there going to be, a fee every month?
Well, it'd be similar to whether, let's say there's a line running right in front of the campus now. It would be the same as that. It's what they call an alternate mainline extension agreement. So typically what's done is the developer, in this case the state, is acting as the developer by fronting the money. They would pay, give the line to the utility, and then anyone that hooks in as a result of the development, or anyone that hooks in subsequently, that would go towards that expedited, towards that repayment. So in this case, I mean, I'm sure there would be a tap fee,
Right.
but if they, typically, if a lot of times they'll throw the tap fee in if they need an easement across your property to run it, usually they'll give a tap fee. I know that's how it is, and where on my property where I signed off on an easement to run a sewer line across it, they threw the tap fee in as sort of quote compensation for taking my ground to run the line. I'm assuming it would be similar to that, but it's being sized for growth.
But it would be, the monthly bill would be the typical water, sewer, plus a fee for repayment of
No,
this?
just your sewer bill. The sewer bill for the usage that you would pay would help go to pay that back.
One of the things we were talking to Branson about was if we were the one to put the line in, and then if anyone else were to tap into that line, we would be reimbursed the cost of the line.
Right, because you would be acting as a developer, similar to what the state's, very similar. In that case, you all would be acting as a developer, right? And so anyone who hooks in would pay you all back. In this case, same thing with the state. The state's acting as a developer, so if you all would hook in, you would pay, the money would go back to pay the state off.
So Roxel's not footing the cost of the line.
No, they will now. It's amortized with their usage. If no one else hooks on that line, Roxel will pay it off over time. Take a lot longer than any of us want it to, including the state. They want their money back quicker than that, but it would pay it off. There's enough usage to justify it if we had to do it that way. But that's worst case scenario. We don't expect that to happen at all.
Right.
We're hoping this will actually get your all's water and sewer costs down. And we've been in conversations with the engineers about that, and I assure you that Ranson's well aware of what you all are looking at down the road.
All right. And then you said that their build out is 120 acres. Did they purchase the whole 400?
No, they did not.
Okay, so
they're just purchasing what they need. Yes, ma'am.
The taxes that you're asking us to abate would just be the 120, so we would still be collecting about $6,000 on the remaining.
Absolutely. You would still collect. Well, whatever. I don't want to quote a number because I don't know how that property is going to be assessed once this is cleaved off. But I'm assuming they will continue to get that ag exemption provided it's being farmed on the balance of the property. And yes, that's being held in private hands, so you would still get that money. So you're helping make my argument. You're actually getting a better windfall than what I'm asking.
Well, I've still got more questions.
No, that's
so
fine.
don't get too excited yet. You were also talking, this is unrelated to that, but you said that they were going to have 130 employees. Are they bringing any employees, or are these all new jobs for Jefferson County?
They'll bring some for sure, just like most businesses, but most of those will be local hires. And keep in mind, under the agreement and the tax credit and incentives that they get from the state, there's a domicile requirement that they hire. They have to hit certain jobs targets, hiring West Virginians to qualify for those credits. So there's some protections in place to make sure that West Virginians are being hired.
Okay. And then my next question is, it looks like this schedule is for about 12 years before they start paying their full share.
Right. Keep in mind, we're always a year behind. They haven't closed on the land yet, so they won't be getting, the previous owner will be getting assessed in 18, and 19 was, they'll be getting mobilized. So I guess you could look at it and say maybe it's 11 years, if you want to look at it that way.
Give or take 11, 12.
Well, it's not 12 because they wouldn't even be assessed on 18. Frankly, I'm not even sure why we had that on there. I was more looking at the start of when they're going to start construction.
Okay. And you said that they have a Mississippi plant
they do
currently that they're closing?
No, they're not closing it.
Oh, they're not closing it?
No, ma'am.
Did they have the pilot program there as well? And if so, how long is that?
I don't know the Mississippi State Code. I'm not entirely sure the package of incentives that they got from the state of Mississippi. I'm sure they got something. I don't know if it's still in effect. I'm pretty confident that what we're offering them is as competitive as what they got down there, or else they would be asking for more. But I really can't speak to, and it's not like they shared that kind of information. Hey, we got X from Mississippi, will you give us more, kind of thing. So I can't really speak to that. I'm sure it's public record if I were to dig for it. But
do you know how long they've been there?
They built that plant in. That's a good question. I do not know the answer. I don't want to say something wrong. It outgrew its capacity pretty quickly. I can get an answer when that was built.
I'd appreciate that. I just want to make sure we don't go down the road for 12 years and then all of a sudden they pick up and they move to another location.
Yeah, I hope not.
Because that's why I was curious as to their history there.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I had one other question. I need a minute if anybody else has any questions.
Over here. While you all are there, do you have anything?
I just had kind of as an aside, going forward with looking at any company, whether it's a P&G or Roxel or whatever, I think it might be a good idea if we look to work together, even with the businesses, to say, if we forward think, trade is becoming a really big thing. It has been for a long time, but some kids want to go away to college, some kids want to learn trade. Mm-hmm. We have Rumsey in Berkeley County, which we utilize very well. The spaces are limited, but it serves well. We don't have that in Jefferson County. So would it behoove us to go after some of these companies like a Roxel, like a P&G, and say, hey, what would you think about funding that type of a facility or a training facility to teach mechatronics, for example, in the high schools, that they might be willing to do? Like, we will train the workforce, right, and give our kids options so that we are guaranteed those jobs.
I think it's
in my opinion, that's what I'd like to.
I think that's a great idea. I think that's a great idea, and I think anything that the school system can do to focus on trades and those types of skill sets is critically imperative. And I think we're reading a lot in the mainstream media about the value of a college degree, and you got a lot of kids in their parents' basement with a wonderful 4-year degree that their parents paid a lot of money for, and they can't find a job. You start training welders and electricians and HVAC guys, they'll have jobs like that. And I mean, that's what P&G wants. P&G wants, that's what Roxel wants. They want folks that can fix stuff and know how to operate machinery, and a lot of it's all computer aided, so they definitely want folks with computer skill sets. But you don't necessarily, that's not the kind of they're not looking for 4-year college degrees. They're looking for some, but it's not like Randox, the biotech company that we're working with in the park. That's a very different type of company. Now they want folks that can fix stuff too, but they also want your life sciences 4-year degrees and your master's degrees and your biochemists. This is a different type of operation. I think that's a great idea, and I think you're seeing is a national trend. You're seeing much more reshoring. Natural gas, for example, is helping to drive that, but the quality of the labor is really driving a lot of these decisions. And the more we can train our young people to go into these kinds of trades, the better off we're going to be to attract this kind of investment. I think it's a great idea. Certainly getting the Roxels and the P&Gs of the world to help fund it is a good idea. I know that Blue Ridge Community Technical College is doing a lot of the training for P&G. And they've met with, they're a standard entity that we introduce when we bring in a company like a Roxel or a Randox or a P&G. We sit them down with the folks at Blue Ridge, and to some extent James Rumsey as well. I mean, we brought in a CDL company that came into the park a couple years ago. We recruited them, and I mean, this area needs truck drivers bad. and they're making
Bus drivers.
truck drivers,
Bus drivers.
Bus
drivers. You didn't hear us.
I'm well aware of your bus garage. It's in our backyard. We're glad to have it, by the way. But I think it's a great idea, and anything I think developing curriculum at the high school level for those kinds of functions will be invaluable, not just for companies coming here, but for the kids themselves. There are a lot of kids that don't want to go to college or don't need to go to college or don't have the interest in going to a 4-year college degree. And I mean, you've got computer folks that are getting 2-year certificate degrees and walking into some really good jobs. And that's that foundation. You want to see that laid right here in the high school system for sure. And I would be more than happy to work with any of our manufacturers about, if you wanted to get something like that off the ground here. I went to Hedgesville High School, so I know how far away Rumsey is from Jefferson County. I think it would behoove the school system to seriously look into something along those lines. And those folks will tell you their graduation rates are great, but their job placement rates are incredible. I mean, they're finding jobs. A lot of them have jobs before they're even done. And I think that's a great idea.
John, do you think any of the people that you deal with that are looking here and coming in here would be willing to put money into a trade school, if you will?
I think it's worth. I don't want to speak for somebody without talking to them, but I could see where I think it's a worthwhile endeavor. It's a worthwhile project to talk to folks and see how we would go about funding it. I don't want to commit the business community without talking to them first, but I don't think it's a hard sell. I mean, it's plainly obvious to me. I think your idea is great.
Well, these companies coming in, they need trained people.
Absolutely.
And the reason I asked, because when I was on the road, I had a lot of business in the Spartanburg, South Carolina area, and that was.
They're knocking it out of the park down there in Spartanburg, South Carolina.
Are they now?
On the automotive section, yeah, absolutely. They are.
Well, yeah, because the car stuff, but at that time, it was textiles.
Yeah.
And all of the big textile companies were in there, and they funded a school right outside of Spartanburg. It was as big as Jefferson High School. Well, and they if you wanted to get a job in any of the textile plants down there, you had to go into that school first. You had to be trained there.
Right.
And the companies paid for it. I don't know, they pro rata or whatever they did, but they paid for it. The county did not put anything at all into that school.
I think it's worth looking at. I mean, for example, we're working with another manufacturer, German manufacturer, and we actually they're very big in apprentice programs in Europe. And I think Europe is fertile ground. There's a lot of companies in Europe that want to get into our market, and foreign direct investment is a big deal. And we actually had their apprenticeship training manual. We had it translated from German to English, and it's in front of Blue Ridge as we speak. So, so that they can basically replicate that apprenticeship program for this specific German manufacturer. Now, we haven't landed them yet, but that's a lot of the stuff that we do. They couldn't read it in German, so we had to translate it. We paid somebody to translate it. Meine Deutsch ist nicht so gut. It's been a while since I've spoken it, but we sent it over. They translated it. We sent it to Blue Ridge, and Blue Ridge is like, we can do this. So right there, there it is. So, I mean, I would look at it as, maybe the thing to do, and I'm not an educator, but a partnership with not just the business community and the school system, but Blue Ridge certainly, because that's a level above what you're probably going to get at Rumsey, and that's where the mechatronics is, and that they're teaching that as we speak there. So, and we have an employer base here now that can support a training program of that nature and have the placement opportunities for them when they get done. I think it's a great idea. I mean, it'd take a lot of work to get something actually over here and funded and in Jefferson County, but I think that's a very worthwhile endeavor. Certainly.
I found my last question.
Please.
You made the comment at first glance you think will benefit because you think it's going to go down that road. Is there any way to get something a little more concrete than
Absolutely.
that?
And like I said, the engineer just got hired, so literally like 2 weeks ago. So I don't want to, pre-engineer something that maybe an engineer hasn't quite agreed to. But the initial glance, when we first looked at how we would do this, does appear that one of the most expeditious ways is to bring it down 115, which I think is in very close proximity, if not right in front of the property you're looking at. That is I can certainly, I can get some clarity to that. It's probably may take a couple weeks before the engineers dig into it, but my initial understanding from the conversations that have been had so far is it looks like that'll be the case.
Thank you.
So.
And if it helps you, our negotiated contract with the strategies that we're still working on the zoning for includes an easement for the water sewer for those facilities.
Some of the water's, I think, already close. I think. Some of it got put in recently, down 115. I'd have to look at the map. I couldn't see it when he was showing it, so I'm not entirely sure exactly how it orients. I know where the Strider farm is. Your all's is it part of that or all of it or just some of it?
Part of it.
It's just part of it. I think it's really close. I mean, I think the water's actually already been laid on 115 part of the way, I believe. So,
I saw it.
Yeah.
John, so I want to go to attachment A for a moment.
Sure.
On the pilot payment schedule. And just kind of the back of the envelope, it looks like the agreement stipulates that they will pay someone, and I want to talk about who that someone is in a moment, $1.6 to $1.7 million over a 10-11 year period. Is that right?
It's almost about $2 million when you add it up.
And beginning in 2020, and that is the first year of beginning construction. It'll be
vertical. I mean, the hope is to break ground this fall, but they felt like they wanted to pay something on the front end rather than backloading it to show the community that, hey, we're going to pay our fair share. Obviously, they ask for these tax breaks. It's common, but they wanted to pay something on the front end because folks, once it goes vertical, folks are going to start asking questions. And then the next logical question is, who is that? What are they? What do they do? And then it'll get to these kinds of questions. So they wanted to pay something up front. They actually offered that up. We were willing to backload it. They originally, and typically companies want it backloaded because, they want the abatement on the front end because that's typically when all their ramp-up costs are highest. Just like when you all build a school, you're spending all the money on the front end, getting it built, getting it up, getting it running, getting it staffed. You're spending all your money.
No, we're not spending money the taxpayers.
Well, you know what I mean. We're all spending. We're all spending money building a school.
They make a payment in year one, and then there's an abatement for 5 years, and then they start to kick in some payments on the backside. One of the things that would be useful for us to see would be what this payment schedule would look like in lieu of a pilot agreement.
It's a good question, and I anticipated someone would ask that. The problem is we don't know exactly how it's going to get appraised. Your county appraiser offices don't have. I mean, a specialist has to be brought in from the state to appraise this facility. So I can't.
You would have had to have done some of this work, or someone.
I based it off the capital investment of $150 million.
In order to even come up with what they believe to be a great deal for them.
Yeah.
So we would like to see if they were subject to what everybody else would be subject to coming in.
Yeah.
What would we expect them to be paying the county? And of course, we're most interested in what piece, since we're seeing these numbers for the first time, what piece, how much of this would be going to education?
Well, it goes in the same. So, if I pay you $1 and 80 cents of that dollar goes to the county, you're getting 80%. Whatever that. I don't know what those exact percentages are.
So then, of the roughly $2 million in the pilot agreement that's going to the county over a period of 11 years.
You'll get roughly 1.6 million of it. I mean, if that's 80%. Is my math good? Maybe is that all right?
The assessment is supposed to be, if they follow state rules, it's supposed to be 60%
of the appraised value. Right. That's what I was getting at.
Yeah.
We're gonna the state has, I think, 4 industrial appraisers that specialize in these types of facilities. The county assessor can't afford nor has the need to keep a specialist on staff to do just this kind of work. So the state will actually appraise it. It'll still undergo the same 60%, just like everybody else does, and you all will get your portion of the millage rate that you get. In this case, it's Ranson, so the millage rate is going to be a little bit higher. So Ranson's also forgiving their portion during the abatement period, and then they'll get, I think Ranson's at 2.832 per $100 of value. I think it's a little higher than what the county is, which is somewhere around 2.4. Don't quote me on those exact numbers, but the municipalities are a little higher. So in this case, we're in a municipality, so you'll have, they'll pay a little more because it's Ranson, and Ranson will get a piece of it as well.
I think we would like to see, again, just for, it'll help us put this in perspective, to get a sense of, realizing that you have to make some reasonable estimates, what you would see if they were not subject.
What I based it off of, where some of these numbers came from, I based it off of $150 million. So you do the math. I was trying to do it on my phone and died on me. I was going to give you a number. We think it's about $1 million a year is what it would be.
Okay.
Depending, like I said, depending on, but that's just straight 150 million, doesn't factor in depreciation, doesn't factor in.
And you mentioned that the state, and understandably so, is making some contributions to the infrastructure.
Absolutely.
To help generate this economic development. And did you mention that the state is going to do some, you think, or have an agreement to do some road work related to the facility?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The road will get, for those of you that aren't familiar with the property, there's a bridge that goes over the railroad, and new Route 9 goes right to the property. It goes off of old Route 9 right across from North Jefferson Elementary. So the bridge will be fine. It can handle the weight. The road will then get extended deeper into the property. And then
the state's going to pay for that?
The state's going to pay for that. And on old Route 9, there'll be some turn lanes, and I don't think there's going to be a signal. I don't think that's going to happen, but there will be some turn lanes to address traffic on old Route 9.
This is a reminder to me, Ralph, that and Gary, since we were all around for this when we opened Washington High School, and of course that created a significant impact on traffic on 340, and a new traffic light was put in. We paid for that. I still think we should put up a sign that says paid for by the Jefferson County Board of Education and the taxpayers of Jefferson County. It's very nice that the state wants to help economic development. And I guess, the frustration that I'm going to express here, my colleagues have had some great ideas. We'd be a much better partner if we're approached on the front end about how can these businesses help us, whether it's saying, hey, we're going to take care of that sewer hookup for you, or you're going to have some road infrastructure. If the state's going to help us, they should help you too. Or, more importantly, as Ms. Ogden pointed out, you need these type workers. How about working with us to build a training program? We don't really have any leverage to do that when something like this is brought to us really post facto. So, if we want to be a good partner, we have to be a partner. Now, as I understand this, so the payments will go to the county. And
Just
then,
like
and then
any
they'll
other
be
taxpayer.
redistributed based on current allocation under the respective taxing authorities.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Just like any other tax bill.
Well, any other questions? And it's our understanding that so the county, the commission has, and you're going to be asking of us to sign an agreement. What precisely are you going to be asking us to do? Sign this agreement?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And the county has done so?
County has, Ranson has, assessor has, sheriff has.
And sheriff, okay.
I'd have been at your October 3rd meeting, or August 3rd meeting. I apologize. I had back surgery. So I've been down for a couple weeks.
Oh, my God. I'm
Sorry about that.
You ought to be sitting down then.
No, I'm feeling great. My pain is gone.
Good.
You need a good neurosurgeon, let me know.
Yeah.
I got a good one.
Well, if there are no other questions, I think that we will, now that you've briefed us on this and answered a lot of questions, we will bring it back to the board for action at the next board meeting and to give the board an opportunity to review it and to contact you if they have any further questions or others. Does that make sense?
Is there no interest in passing it today? I think it would send a good message if we were able to get it done today.
We would certainly entertain a motion to do so, but I think there's a lot of information here. There are a lot of questions. We are going to want to go back and look at our survey site for this property and to make sure that if there's any further discussions that we need to have regarding the opportunity to tie into this sewer line, that we're taking such action. So I think that we're going to want to make sure we review all those related issues. But again, if anyone strongly disagrees, now would be the good time to tell us.
I just think we have an obligation to the taxpayers here in the county that we don't give away, if you will, additional taxes that are coming into the county when we, in the not too distant future, are going to probably have to go to those same people and ask them to pay extra taxes in the form of a bond levy that we can build a school on that.
And the Development Authority has supported your bond levy each time you've asked, and will continue to do that.
But yeah, I'm sure you will, and but I want the people in the county to believe that we're not giving away something and then coming back to them and asking them to.
Well, I'd like to point out again, if I may, the tax bill on this property is about $8,400. You're going to get 30 times that the first payment they make, and another $1.7 million on the back end of it, which is, somebody help me with my math, 500 times the amount that you're getting now, and that's without factoring in the balance of the property that's still going to be paying an ag exemption rate. So, but I'm happy to answer any further questions. I hope the project is engineered enough to, to determine whether or not the sewer line will run in close proximity. But from, like I said, initial discussions, it does appear it will, and I think you guys will benefit from it. And
we'll want to explore that. We think that sounds like a great opportunity. Particularly appreciate you standing for this amount of time. And
you should have seen me a month ago.
And I know if we have further questions, we'll be in touch with you, and the board will.
So we'll plan on being on the agenda for next month?
That would.
Actually, the 25th of this month. So
25th
we have 2 meetings per month. Yes,
okay,
sir.
okay, so not a whole full month. Okay.
Yep. 2 weeks.
Well, I'll talk with Ranson and the engineers and see if we can get some clarity on that. Are there any other sticking points, if you will?
We will want to we'll talk among ourselves and make sure that it's probably a little late to get them to agree to build a vocational education plant on the remaining 200 or so acres. But, you know, if you want to raise that with them, we'd be happy to come talk to them about it.
Why don't we get the tax agreement worked out first?
Okay.
See about milking them for some more.
All right.
Thank you all.
Thank you, John. Good to see you.
Take care.
Well, we appreciate the patience of everyone, but particularly our friends from the Jefferson County Little League. Why don't we invite them to...
Yes, sir. Actually, so they're here, and I can actually speak because the map that you see on the wall represents the property that lies between the rear of Jefferson High School and the old bus garage. And we, as a county, instituted last year a new process. We had several sort of lingering, outstanding situations where we had our very, very generous citizens and booster groups who had made contributions and made improvements on our property, and then had subsequent lack of understanding or disputes about who was responsible for maintenance of those, or suddenly our insurance changed because someone had come and made some improvement on our property. And really, as large as we've become, we instituted, as the board is aware and the public may not be, a construction request form. Anyone who wants to make any improvements on Jefferson County Schools property, donate, build a concession stand for us, put in a trail, we now require that they complete this request, and it goes through an approval process, which includes a Title IX check, which includes a BRIM insurance check for us, which forces us to contemplate up front who bears the responsibility for maintenance costs for those things that weren't necessarily contemplated in the past and then ended up leading to disputes if they weren't clarified. Well, we actually, partially as a result of the growth in this county, we received multiple competing requests for the use of that piece of property. And in discussion with the board, we went back and completed what I honestly hope to be a model for us in the future, in that we had all of the parties who had made any request for usage of that land to come together and hold a joint meeting. That included the Jefferson County Little League, Jefferson High School principal, the FFA, and Jefferson County Parks and Recreation. We all met, took everyone's proposal that they had originally laid out, and then we worked to modify all of those separate proposals until we could achieve one joint proposal that included everyone's sort of wish list in there. And what you see in the smaller picture right there, in which every board member has a copy of in front of you, is the resulting joint proposal from that. And that includes a substantial portion of that land to be dedicated to an outdoor ecological classroom for the FFA. It includes a 15-foot easement along the south side of that property set aside for Jefferson County Parks and Rec as they pursue grants for Walk to School, in which they hope to connect the trail at T.A. Lowry to Jefferson High School and students able to bike between those. It includes improvements to the Jefferson County Little League facilities, in that it includes an additional full-sized field, an additional T-ball field, an addition of lights to their field, and the addition of a batting facility within their existing complex. It also includes the addition of a Jefferson High School soccer field. As the board is well aware, we currently do not have a soccer facility at Jefferson High School, and we pay to bus those students to their practices and games at other facilities. The girls are actually right out here. They practice in this lower field, and the boys practice over at Morgan's Grove. So this was a joint proposal, and I want to thank very, very much both Ms. Ross, Jennifer Myers, Jeremy Green, Mr. Sager, the president of Jefferson County Little League, and congratulations on your, where'd he go? Oh, there you are, honey. Congratulations on your recent re-election, sir. And they have been absolutely phenomenal partners in that most of the actual construction work on this is proposed by the Jefferson County Little League. They would be doing a lot of the land work to clear out for the Jefferson High School soccer field, which would result in considerable savings for us, and that we wouldn't be doing the land movement work. We'd be doing the seeding and all the work to follow after that. But several members of the Jefferson County Little League are here to answer questions, as is Ms. Ross. Ms. Myers sends her apologies. She could not be here. And as the board, if you've checked your email, also received several emails from members of the Jefferson County Little League. And I think one of the primary focuses and more immediate focuses within this, because this is a long-term plan. Every one of these, even the development of the outdoor classroom with FFA, was a 5-year plan in that they're over time to grow those facilities. But probably the most promptly needed within this is the T-ball field. As you've seen from our growth at the preschool and kindergarten level, they are struggling to have enough field space for their youngest members. But Mr. Sager, if you have some words that you'd like to share about the usage and the agreement.
Yes, we're definitely outgrowing our field space right now, and by adding some extra fields, we will be able to service the children and keeping them in the same complex instead of having to go to different complexes outside. We help parents with multiple children. That's one of the problems that we experience right now. If they have to, even as close as San Michael's, if they have to travel to San Michael's and in JCL complex, they have a problem when they have T-ballers and 8-year-olds and 9-year-olds separating from them. And sometimes not every parent, not every child has 2 parents who can divide and conquer. So we're trying to, we have that problem a lot. So we think that the addition of the field space will help us with families that are struggling. They only have one parent that can bring their children to the games. And we definitely are going to try to use all our resources that we can with our 503 charity and everything that we have to try to clear out that land to help with soccer. We heard some of the costs that the county goes through to help get players to where they need to go to practice and play games, and we would love to help out with the soccer field as much as we can to try to get that built.
We also, I met with Mr. Sager. We currently have an MOU with Jefferson County Parks and Rec that outlines each one of our constituent responsibilities in terms of maintenance of things. We do not currently have an existing agreement with Jefferson County Little League. However, Mr. Sager and I have met and sort of hammered out. They currently bear a significant degree of the expenses for those the existing facilities to the tune of, it was a little over $60,000 over the last 5 years, just in infrastructure costs and maintenance, and we're working on an agreement so that their constituents, as they're making these contributions, Jefferson County Schools has a clear understanding. They have their own insurance, they complete the maintenance for the fields, so that there is an understandably legally binding agreement, MOU, between their organization and ours to clarify that, because one doesn't currently exist.
So you're not asking us to, so would we be approving that agreement in principle tonight, or would you be coming back to us with that agreement?
Actually, what
my
we
computer
are
froze, so I'm not sure if it's in here.
Actually, sir, what we're asking for right now is simply the board's agreement to this proposal, and then working out with each one of these individual organizations. They all agreed in a joint proposal to modify their proposals to meet these parameters. And we simply want the board's approval on this joint proposal, and then we'll work through each one of their individual agreements. They've all submitted timelines, and they've submitted information. If they're an outside organization, they've submitted information about their insurance, about their timeline, usage expectations, things like that.
So is this soccer field here an actual playing size soccer field? It's a full size soccer field? It is.
We had a lot of discussion at that meeting. We actually looked at the parameters for that. We ended up moving it. It was originally down here, and the FFA had requested that it be moved up here for some of the usage that they wanted. They needed contiguous land rather than two separate parcels. But this currently meets WVA SSAC guidelines for soccer field size.
And that's as close as we can get it to the high school.
We could get it closer to the high school, but you would then be.
This is closer than what we have now.
Right.
It is a lot closer.
I'm just concerned about kids getting from the high school to that
move
field.
football over there.
Yeah. The only way to get it closer would be if you abutted it to the existing field and then put those other two proposed fields on the back side of it closer to the bus garage. But then the concern there would be you'd have your high school students closer, but you'd be placing your 6-year-olds who are playing t-ball farther away. And we didn't feel like, again, we spent a lot of time looking at this and thinking about the actual kids who would be traversing it, where they would go. The FFA was very pleased at the proposed location of the trail from Jefferson County Parks and Rec. They can help maintain it. It gives them good access into the different parts that they want to use the Echo classroom outside.
And the shared bathroom facility means the soccer kids and whatever would actually have a bathroom out there, which they currently don't.
Which they currently do not have.
Now.
And it would also allow, and correct me if I'm wrong, sir, currently JCLL cannot host certain level tournaments. You can't host regional tournaments, correct?
We can't. We have area in district, but we can't host state unless we have a bathroom facility with running water.
Which they currently do not have. So it would give them the capacity to host state tournaments as well.
Existing Field 4, is that still used? Does the high school still use that at times?
The junior field?
Yes.
Yes. The high school still uses that. It doesn't really interfere with our schedule because we don't use it until about 5:30. So usually they're coming off the field when we go to use the field. I believe they at the JV uses it, but they also use the some of the batting cages and things that we've done or that we've built. They use those too. So we are sharing our facility with the JV, and they get to use some of the additions that we put on that for our kids. They get to take advantage of too.
Thank you.
Can we get the FFA to plant a bunch of corn so we can call it Field of Dreams?
Actually, they have an orchard planned out there. They're pretty excited about the orchard portion of it. That came later.
Now, so this is bus garage here, I
Yes,
assume.
sir.
Who owns
We
this?
own every bit of that,
We
sir.
own all of this.
That's simply grayed out because in the picture that we had there, it had buses all around it. Those buses won't be there because they're all over the new bus garage. So he just sort of blacked that
I'm
out.
looking at potential parking.
Yes, sir. For the soccer field.
And that's why it is blacked out, because we thought it would be potential parking space.
Yeah.
And it's already paved, because right now, we're currently in all gravel.
Right.
That paved
Right.
space would.
It's a little bit of a walk, but that helps everybody's heart rate. Is there any level land underneath those trees?
That's more to do.
It's not horrible, but it's not, I mean, it's not, it's typical of Jefferson County.
There's a lot of rock.
Yeah. Well,
a little bit of level and a whole lot of rocks.
Yeah.
And the 5-year plan isn't necessarily just for the construction phase. I mean, we're already at capacity, if not over, for our 5 to 7-year-olds. So when we're looking 5 years down the road with a lot of the additional developments that are in the works, he left a little too early before I was going to start asking him for money too.
I think he was eager to get out of here.
Yeah, but I mean, at some point, those numbers are going to continue to grow, whether, you know, with us or without us, those numbers will grow.
Is the soccer field in year 1 or year 5? Do you know what the plan is?
The plan is to clear that area as fast as we can. I honestly do not, I wouldn't feel comfortable clearing just the area that we could use and not focusing on that. If we can get, I mean, we already started to try to reach out to people, but one thing that we do when we negotiate with people, we try to work out some kind of deal where even if we pay something, it's not the full cost, and then we can they can donate people's time, and we can write something out so that they can get a tax refund on that. A lot of times we've had deals with Green Horizons for sod, where we pay for the sod, they lay it, but we write them a letter so that they can write off all the labor. So we're going to look to try to find deals like that. We do have somebody who was already, when we first started to think about this process, we had one of the members, his son plays t-ball, and he's aware of the field space, and he has equipment to remove trees, but he doesn't have the equipment to remove the whole 7 acres. But he said that, you know, he could help remove trees to help build a field so that we could get something for the t-ballers, and that kind of started the idea. And I know if we can have one person who has some equipment that can do something, then we can find others, and we can try. If we can't find one person to do it all, then what we can do is we can try to find a group of people that are willing to participate on sections at a time and try to get that done within the next year or so.
I just see this as a great idea, but I also see it as soon as we say, oh, we're building a soccer field, then the question is when.
Yeah.
So just...
And we do not have funding allocated currently in our budget to actually do anything with. If they pull every tree off of there, it is still a considerable investment for us to then turn it into a field with goals and marking and sod, and that's not currently in our budget. However, I would point out that we currently spend about $7,000 a year, between $7 and $8,000 a year, busing kids back and forth for practice.
Right.
So
is there soccer boosters?
There is a soccer boosters, and they are very interested.
Maybe we can work with them and see if we can raise some money for them. Maybe they may have some
soccer field. These fields on the other side.
Worth a try.
So, and again, I think the idea was that the board, rather than having competing proposals and the board having to, you know, elevate one element of our community over the desires of the other, we had everybody together and just conceptually, is the board at approval of this plan, and then we work through timelines on each one of these.
And is it just going to be a practice field, or is it eventually going to be where they play their games?
The idea it would be where they would play their games, simply because it has that capacity because it's of sufficient regulation size.
Okay.
Again, you've got issues with parking and with fans and with bathrooms.
And they'll definitely play all these games in a day, right?
Because there won't be any lights out there. Exactly. Exactly.
And there's no seats to sit in.
Yeah. Well, and you don't really usually get seats for soccer anyway, but. Okay.
Okay, so
high school, there are seats.
So we would then entertain a motion to approve this proposal in concept, subject to an MOU with among us.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
For all of the entities we currently have an MOU with, except for JCLL. And as I said.
Okay. Any further questions?
The only other question I have is, when you come up the backside, if I'm looking at the stadium itself and where the girls' softball is, so it'll be out of this proposal, but there is parking now, right? That they drive up through that fence and park up there. Is that correct, Ms. Ross? Do you like
Yes.
the cars?
Yeah, gravel.
So it's gravel park there. I mean, I know from football boosters, years of football boosters, and years of soccer boosters at Jefferson High School, there has always been talk of the fact that that stadium needs to be bigger and this and this. And if you look at their field of dreams, it includes a new press box and field house on the back side of that stadium where the softball kids park, and then paved parking. That being the case, then you run into Jefferson County Little League property.
First of all, there's
not-
no such thing as Jefferson County
Yeah, it's our
Little League
property.
property. Everything from everything you see encompassed on there until you get to the tree line is Jefferson County Schools property.
Okay.
Jefferson County Little League has very generously made improvements on Jefferson County Schools property.
Okay, what I guess I'm saying is if we don't want to disrupt what we approve, because it's laid out nice and it works, if you will.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Is there room through there, and is that the right configuration that, we feel like would work in that one swath, or is there another way that it should be configured? Or, I'm assuming you said you spent a lot of time looking at that, but do we have enough space there as it is for our own parking, even handicap parking, coming in on the other side? Because I know it is gravelled through Jefferson County Little League space that they're using right now coming through. Is that opened up? Is there something that needs to be done there with parking on that side to access the softball field better and possibly more handicap parking on the other side of the stadium?
We did not contemplate expanding the girls' softball parking or making any additional parking for the football stadium as part of that discussion. No, we did not.
All the new proposed stuff is to the left of the existing stuff.
Right,
so
it
it's
is,
not
yeah,
building
it's
into
just
anything.
completely,
Right.
land use of that unused land.
Okay. So, it looks like we have here, a partner that we've had a great relationship with, and we're, they're thinking about their needs and also thinking about how we can work together. And I assume, particularly if we have an MOU in place, that we can jointly apply for some grants and other type activities to help, hopefully chase down some dollars. So I think it's a great example of how we want to work with the community going forward.
I will say it was very gratifying. Jefferson County Parks and Rec actually expressed their appreciation because they were working on their 10-year master plan, and they had actually had in their budget to start some field development at another one of their parks. And they said, this is great. If you're going to develop these two fields, we can bump that down on our priority list and pay for some other things, because the field need won't be quite so critical because you're doing these things. We really appreciate it when we have these joint conversations. So that was helpful.
Now, I do wonder, and it could be that particularly the Little League knows this property a lot better than I do, and then perhaps many of us, whether we have a third party who could come in and look at this, who could say, yeah, this makes sense, or I might move this down this way and move this that way, based on what they based on their expertise. I'm thinking of like Thrasher, for example. But again, not wanting to expend money we don't have. But whether it's worth having a third party who understands conceptually what we're planning to do, but once you start looking underneath those trees, might say, yeah, you might adjust this a little bit, save you some money.
And certainly at this point, we've made no investment whatsoever in infrastructure. All of the work, these drawings, it's all been done by volunteers.
Sure,
and,
which we are grateful for.
Right. To date, none of those improvements, with the exception eventually of the soccer field, would we be putting money into.
Okay. All right, we have a motion. It's seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Any further questions or comments?
Just thank you very much to JCL.
Thank you all.
Very much,
We look forward
gentlemen. And Ms. Ross.
Look forward to continuing to work with you.
Right. So we can have another 400 kids at Jefferson now that we have
Yeah, you got more
additional
parking?
field space.
Yeah.
There are some tree pruning.
Knock some of those trees.
Build a big tree house.
Would you like those learning cottages as far away from the main building as possible?
On behalf of Mr. Green and the Ag Program, because that will give 30
Yeah, that's
space
exciting. That's
for
cool.
9 of our CTE
Yeah,
classes.
great.
Wow, and which is fantastic. And as you well know, we have one of the best FFA programs
Yes, we do.
in the state.
And it is a joint effort with Washington, so Washington would have access to the property, and they were involved in the development of those ones.
One of my favorite days of the year is drive your tractor to
Drive
school. I mean, it is awesome.
Now we can drive to the field and pull some trees.
Every kid pull a tree day. Is that what we're gonna have?
That's right.
Pull a tree.
Yeah, you sure will.
Would actually.
Take a mighty big tractor to pull those trees.
Oh, that's great.
Thank you all very much.
Yeah, thank you very much. I know it's a long day for all of you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. No, ma'am. Thank you, though.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, now that I've totally got us out of order here, how about if we drop item B to the very end and take everything else?
Sure.
Does that make sense?
You're welcome to stay, or you're welcome to.
Yeah, you're more than welcome to.
Scintillating is this meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, gentlemen.
Yep.
They're just looking at each other like.
Save yourselves. Thank you very, very much. Oh, and
What do you say? Yeah.
Oh, really?
I should have gone with it.
Against the wall.
So, okay, so what we're doing, D, F, G, H, and then B. All right.
Right.
I can almost do the alphabet backwards.
I have Larry here for support because he's the manager of all these things and how it goes. It's all about routing tonight. Number one, D, which is the motion to approve the 2 special ed buses, operators and buses. Larry has worked feverishly this year to knock that number down. We got down to 19 different bus runs. And after we got down to the 19 different bus runs, we had some more students show up. And those students actually went to a different place than all of our buses went. So in that situation, we had to add the 2 bus runs, or we'll have to add the 2 bus runs to pick those students up and take those students to schools where we didn't have bus runs. And as Larry said, it's more a geographical problem than anything because they're in a place that we didn't have a run. It always seems to work that way. But we did have 21 runs last year, and at this point we'll still only have 21 this year with these 2. So because they did some downsizing as much as they possibly could, got down to 19, these 2 would just push us back up to 21, which is what we were at last year anyway.
This would okay, so motion is approval for 2 special need bus operators and
2 aides, because you gotta have
yep.
both.
We have a motion?
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Questions?
My biggest question is, we don't have enough bus drivers now.
Right.
So, like, who's doing it? Because clearly there are
We'll have subs.
schools.
We'll have subs in the position.
Larry.
Well, and who's doing it lots of times is
Right, right.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm
Well,
wondering,
we don't-
like, what's going to happen? So we approve them, but there's no way to change a route to be able to get them
If Larry
access?
could, Larry would have. Larry looked at this in lots of different ways. And remember, this makes Larry drive more anyway. And Larry doesn't want to drive, he wants to do his job. So,
Well,
I
that's
mean,
what
it's
I'm
not
saying.
like.
That's my concern. I'm
Yeah.
like, so now we're going to pick up 2 more
Yeah, but we don't have
special
the
education
choice.
buses and 2 more aides. So these 2 students can't go on the same bus with 1 aide?
No.
Unfortunately, believe us, yes, we would love for that to happen.
So is this going to be 2
Geographically.
buses with just 2 different students on there?
Probably not.
And 2
We're
A's?
going to make some adjustments because over the course of since the beginning of the school year, trying and knowing that we don't have drivers, we have stretched many of our routes to the rubber band to the limit. So we have a lot of buses that are ending up, if this makes any sense, at our secondary level in the afternoon. They're getting to the elementary schools 15 minutes after they release. So we still have students that are sitting at the school waiting on the secondary bus to arrive because we have X number of stops and children on that route that are having to go over here, making that bus late to the elementary school. Does that kind of make sense?
It makes sense, because my bus this year is a regular education bus, and my daughter's home 20 minutes later than she was last year because of that reason, and picked up 15 minutes later in the morning because of that. So I get that point, but that's what I guess I'm trying to figure out, is if we don't have bus drivers now,
So-
like how is this going to help, I guess is what my question is.
We're going to ask you guys to push and help us get bus drivers for one thing, so we can increase that pool as much as you can, and we're certainly doing it too.
Every day we're looking for bus drivers in every way. Didn't know they had a CDL class someplace else though, so maybe we'll be trying to steal people from them. I mean, it's not an easy situation. There's not a real good answer. We wish there was. We wish there was a great answer. We wish there was a way that we didn't have to do this. If we didn't have to, we wouldn't.
And of course, you'll see on down the line, we've got a couple others, so yeah.
Yeah, let's take them all.
Yeah, let's do the next
we're
one,
gonna,
too.
Wait a minute, before we do that. So we've got a motion and a second on this, right? We do?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Okay. Half-day bus driver. The half-day bus driver is a half-day elementary only going to North. And it's going to North Jefferson because we've had to put so many people on
kindergarten.
Yeah. It's all about administrative transfers.
And we have this bus driver, right?
Yes.
This is an additional
Yes.
run, right?
Yeah, right. Correct.
Right.
That, we currently have 3 halftime runs at the secondary level. One of those 3 will be the fortunate candidate to have a second halftime contract.
Right. But basically, it's because of our kindergarten numbers and have put so many people at North.
So if you get them to school in the morning,
It's
how do you get them?
It's a half and a half. It's a
Okay.
quarter and a quarter.
So it's a
makes
morning
half.
and afternoon.
It's
but-
morning and afternoon,
Right.
but it's only half.
Makes sense. I know.
I know. It took me a second, and then I thought, oh, bus driver brain, come back in.
So
It's a
how is
half and
that
is a quarter and a quarter.
Student getting to school now?
Students,
How are those students?
they are.
getting to school
We are
now?
running this route.
They're on a route. They're on the route now. They're on a bus.
I mean, yeah, you had to do it.
We had to do
but now
it. We
you
didn't
gotta
have a
bring it
choice.
for approval.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
We're not leaving these kids home right now, okay?
Yeah.
Well, I know that. I'm just trying to figure out, like, who's working extra now that is basically like, I'm not working extra.
Yeah. They're still going to be working.
Okay.
So that's the half day.
Motion to approve.
So moved.
And second? Second. Okay. Any in opposition? Not approved. Third one.
Okay, the third one is the OLC pathway run to Jefferson. It's from the OLC to Jefferson from the pathway,
Options.
options pathway. Which the options pathway, we talked about it greatly this morning. Basically, it's a program we use to keep people from dropping out. So it's a dropout prevention system. And you're only paying, and it's a midday. So we're paying 1.75 hours.
No, it's a set rate. It would be a set rate, but the driver, the bus route is going from the OLC to Jefferson.
Right.
And then they're going to hop on the Rumsey bus that we already have in place to go to James Rumsey.
But it's to take them from the OLC to Jefferson to go to Rumsey.
So wait a minute, this is the post for 2 operators for a midday run? Or is this the one that?
This is
Right now,
H, it's just one.
This is
H.
one for Jefferson.
H.
If Washington doesn't have any students on the program right now, but if they would pick up students later in the year, it would prevent us from having to come back and say, can we post for a ride or driver? Right now, we would just put one driver. We're going to have one going out to Jefferson right now. There aren't any Washington students that need transportation.
Motion?
So moved.
Second? Second. So, Larry, I take this opportunity, and we're talking about the great need for bus drivers. If we change the start times for middle and high school to later, would it help us with the shortage of bus drivers at all?
You're still going to have the same number of students to transport.
Right.
So your question is to flip-flop? Is that what you're, whether we transport them in the front end or whether we transport them in the back end, we're still transporting the same number of students. It doesn't matter. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I know that some districts argue that it does save transportation costs in addition to other issues. I'm just trying to figure out if we have a bus driver shortage, does this help address that in any way? I can't see it off the top.
You would have to have such a large spread. The only way that it helps is if you make double or even triple runs, and you would have to have such an enormous amount of time between start times that parents wouldn't tolerate that, and especially for secondary sports schedules and things like that, and for parents who relied on their older
So I'll have to come up with another reason to convince you to do this.
So tell Jack that what he needs to do.
I'm just going to tell him I tried.
Okay, there you go. That's all.
So this is midday, so it's at lunchtime, correct? So this child is going from the OLC to Jefferson to Rumsey. So by the time they get to Rumsey, is it 5 at night? I mean...
No, it's actually, I think, 11:15 in the morning. So when you say lunchtime, it's actually not at lunchtime. They're leaving, I think, the OLC at 10:15, getting to Jefferson, and then hopping on the Jefferson to Rumsey bus, going to James Rumsey.
And they can't do the Rumsey portion in the middle when the other kids go to Rumsey?
They do, that's what
They do. They're getting to Jefferson to take the Rumsey bus that already is going.
And this is one
This
person?
run is specifically just from the OLC to Jefferson.
So that he catch the Rumsey bus.
It's already in place. The Rumsey bus, Rumsey to Jefferson is already in place.
Okay, so this is just OLC to Jefferson?
Correct.
Can we apply for a waiver to contract with UberX? Wouldn't it be cheaper?
At the risk of having 112 bus drivers at the next board meeting, sir, I will convey that we have exemplary professional drivers, and our safety record is exemplary because of the amount of training that they have to have. And,
I'm on medication.
I understand, sir. I understand. Pretend that never happened.
All right.
How old do you have to be to get your CDL or be a bus driver? 21. So it's not something we can train students in to do after graduation?
No, unfortunately. I think
Unless they graduated at 21.
It's 21.
Keep thinking. Keep thinking.
You'll come up with something good. Wow.
All right.
Driver's ed.
So this is this one H?
H.
Okay, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. And we have taken care of everything except F and B, is that correct?
Correct, sir.
Okay, F.
All right, very good. Good evening, everyone. Let me just...
When did you get here, Mr. Pettiford? Good to see you.
Thank you, sir.
Good night, Larry.
I
know.
Thank you all.
Good night. See you, gentlemen.
I thought he was sitting over there just enjoying the show.
Let me confirm that you did receive a copy of the attachment for the policy, the job description for the editor school policy manual and standard operating procedures. Did you receive that?
Yes.
Okay, I want to confirm. So this is consistent with the theme that we've been maintaining since last year this time with regard to overhauling the Jefferson County policy book. This year we're approaching with the same tenacity that we did last year, attacking Chapter 7, which is the personnel section. And so last year it was discussed during a board meeting that the approach that we would take is very similar to Chapter 7 and 8, where we would contract out for a policy editor to assist us with coordinating the changes that need to be adjusted in those particular chapters. So this year we're going to tackle 6. This job description is exactly the same as the previous one, so we've addressed all the concerns and issues that folks had on the service side of things as well as professionals. And we're just asking for your permission to go ahead and post that as soon as possible so we can get that out. And we'd like to actually run it for more than 5 days so that we allow an ample opportunity for private sector folks that have maybe HR expertise to be able to take a look at it and respond to it as well, and make that open to the public.
Let's get a motion and then questions.
Right.
So moved.
Second. I have a question. You said it's exactly what we posted before. And I
Correct.
think it
The
is
only difference is
exactly-
it's reporting to me
Right.
relative to the personnel piece.
Although
But it
actually it's
says-
for one chapter rather than 2, so the stipend would be
Correct.
at a reduced level.
Okay, but the last line, it has the wrong date. It says June 30th, 2017.
Oh, you're
So it
absolutely
can't be
right.
exactly
That should be for
the
18.
same.
Is the stipend the same?
It would be half of that because the previous stipend was for writing 2 chapters,
Okay,
7 and
so
8,
that's
so it
what
would be
I
half of that staff. It would be $2,500 for just one chapter.
Okay.
Are we going to be able to get someone at this, we think?
Well, that's the goal that we're hoping to try to find out by extending
Sure.
it for the 10-day period to see how that fares. And if we're unsuccessful at that, then we'll circle back and report out.
So we would be approving these with the modifications of 2,500 and the
2018.
Correct. Thank you.
2018.
All right, we have any other questions? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Ms. Pettifor, we know that you've brought a lot of professionalism and skill and expertise to Jefferson County. So I want you to know how grateful we are that you're here.
Thank you.
And I know that Dr. Gibson probably locks you in your office every day that you come in, and we just ask you to continue to do that, Dr. Gibson.
Well, it's a
And he
privilege.
loves every
It's a privilege to be here and to serve, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, the privilege is ours. Thank you.
Thank you.
Final agenda items, well, final
Let's hear
public
it.
session agenda item. Action on approval of the superintendent's goals for evaluation by law. The board must approve the superintendent's goals for the coming school year by September the 15th.
Wow. We might make it.
But yes, sir. I strive to see that we do.
Okay. And of course, this is always an ongoing, important discussion. And let's see here.
Would you like me to review those 4 quickly for the
Yes,
board?
would you please?
Yes, sir. The 4 goals are based on discussion with the board at our retreat board meeting and their priorities. One of them was the implementation of a new idea product on our website and app to encourage citizens and staff to submit their ideas for improving Jefferson County schools. this board has prided itself on transparency and community engagement. And as we've grown, and you've certainly seen, we've done a lot of, surveying, work groups with the community, pulling folks in and asking for their ideas, and simply expanding that from being simply a project-based idea where it's specific to redistricting or specific to this project, that we open that up to an ongoing dialogue that you had suggested, to be able to bring in ideas from citizens on improvement and working on that interface with all of our constituents. The second goal in terms of student achievement is, as we had noticed to the board, we recently completed a year-long development of a 3 through 5 pacing guide for mathematics and support documents for our teachers. The board very much wanted to see the next arena that we moved into in terms of the support materials for teachers to be K2 reading, and you asked that we replicate the same process and that we provide intensive staff development to a group of teachers who then write the pacing guides for each 9 weeks for K through 2 and embed in that support materials, links for those teachers to be able to use. The third goal, realignment of the staff development program to increase time and quality of content. As you know, we fought the good fight, and thanks to some support from our legislators, we're able to triple the amount of staff development time available to us. And we want to be able to use that wisely, and so we need to make some changes to our staff development program. We actually have begun that process. We've had a series of meetings with the principals to talk about how we revamp our staff development council and utilize our performance data to guide what our staff development themes are and how school staff development fits within those. And finally, the last goal was the planning and execution of a public information campaign regarding the county growth rate and soliciting input for short and long range building plans. Now that we've purchased this land, and as you also know, we have constituents in the Shepherdstown area and other areas of the school system who have needs, strongly varying needs to different degrees. We are approaching the 10-year anniversary of our CEFP. That process is going to be revamped by the state, but we believe this is a good opportunity to go out to all of our constituents and say, here are our growth rates at each one of the developmental levels. What would you like to see in our schools of the future? What direction would you like to see us go in as a county? And use that feedback to drive our plans for the land that we've purchased for growth and for any growth at individual schools, additions or things like that, and programming. To your point, do we need to see, although we are, I will point out, legally prohibited from having our own CTE program in county. Currently the law requires that those are shared facilities. But ideas like that, if that's really what our constituents want to see, then that helps drive our legislative agenda as well.
Well, I think it has opened it up because we can have these new cooperative agreements. And the way that the legislature has changed the laws on that, I think that there are definitely ways that we can do a lot of things and be the forerunners of that instead of following behind
I would agree.
everyone else.
Okay, so these are the, this reflects 4 written goals that we have collaborated on, in addition to other broader criteria that we'll evaluate you on. And we want to establish these now, and the timeline for evaluation is at
3 months.
it's going to be from now till February or March?
Yes, sir. Because I am in the last year of my contract, the board has to evaluate me prior to March 1st.
That's a lot of ground to cover. I mean, not that I want to let you off the hook or anything, but
some of these, I honestly, in having had this discussion, the discussion with the board was, do I make very unambitious goals that I know I'll be able to accomplish in 3 months, or do I plan goals for the year? Unless you say goodbye to me March 2nd, then presumably I will finish out at a minimum, finish out my contract year, and even after you evaluate me on March 1st, I will still have yours and the citizens' work to do. So I went ahead and made year-long goals, some of which you can certainly, and you'll note in your attachment that the next column is sort of step-by-step timelines for accomplishment of those goals. And so you could certainly come March say, okay, you've done 2 out of these 3 steps on the timeline, you're on track to accomplish this by the end of the year. I think the board should have sufficient information to be able to make a judgment about my progress at that point.
And on goal number 4, it says that there's going to be public meetings this fall and in the spring.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's the plan. Yes, ma'am.
Well, don't make it too ambitious if if it needs to be spring.
Understandably. And again, some of this is dependent on the data that I receive from the state. For instance, 2 of my goals from last year, we are continuing. We still don't have subgroup data from the state on the WVGSA scores. So I can't give you subgroup data yet.
We're confident that you're not sitting around waiting on it either.
Oh, no, sir. But I would like to have it.
I'm a bit concerned about goal 2.
Yes, sir.
A pacing guide isn't necessarily going to increase reading on grade level by grade 3. I think that I hope we take a whole lot more measures than just a pacing guide, because I think we've discussed the importance of children reading on grade level by grade 3. And if we are not looking to do something different or add some more support to those lower grade levels, we're going to get the same product we've been getting.
I would echo that, Mr. Osborne. And certainly I can take additional measures, but to your point, I can measure it 9 ways to Sunday. If I don't actually make some additional changes in the support that those teachers get in K through 2, you're right, we'll end up getting the same results that we've had previously.
So we're going to have to do something different than we're doing, or we're going to get the same thing.
So do you think that needs to be reflected in...
Not necessarily reflected in that goal. I'm just saying that a pacing guide is not going to make a big difference in whether kids are reading on grade level by grade 3. And we have talked about the importance of this a great deal. So I hope we're going to do a whole lot more than that, because if we don't, we're going to get the same thing we've always got.
Yes, sir. Well, I think between that and the alignment of staff development, those are our 2 key things. If we, in setting the pacing guide, the thought was having a minimum requirement of everyone shall at a minimum be doing these things each 9 weeks, so that we can at least set a baseline.
That will help some.
But it will not. To your point, will it get us where we need to be? No, sir, it will not. No, sir, it will not. There are a lot of other things that need to happen in terms of beefing up our intervention programs, in terms of teacher training and staff development for our K2 staff. Yes, sir, you are entirely correct. Are those things that I think I can accomplish this year? I will be completely honest with you, sir.
That isn't something that's going to happen overnight.
Yes.
Well, I think what's important to us is that we know that you're focused on that, and we know that this is an important goal for ultimate success for these students.
Well, I think just like the math goal, when we talked about this goal, I remember too, it dealt with the transient population as well, and the fact that with just like math, no matter what school you're in or how many times you get transferred here, there, the other, at least we can count on X, Y, or Z. I mean, we have to at least know that if we have expectations and we know that this is supposed to be happening, everybody has to follow the same rules. Otherwise, it's unfair. And so this is at least the start of that and that piece of that. So,
well, and I think our staff is immensely capable. For the last 2 years, we've had an intensive focus on mathematics, because when I came in, our reading scores were here and our math scores were here, and the math scores were going down every year, and so it was math. So we just sort of went all in, intensive staff development on math, and Sandy Atkins on math, and math materials and math manipulatives and math. It was just all math all the time. Every principal put a math goal into their evaluation, and our math scores have climbed every single year. Now, my fear is that then we turn around and reading just sort of languished.
It can't be one-year shots.
Exactly. So it seems like we'll get an intensive focus in some place and then other things just the time. So we have to bring better balance to that.
So the motion is on approval of the superintendent's goals for evaluation. We have a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. We look forward to working with you to achieve these goals and to give you the support you need to be successful.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Any other items of business before the board?
No, so we will have an executive session for personnel.
The educational community lost 2 individuals this past month that were very important to us, Tootsie Mercer and Tom Mercer, and they were a married couple, and Tom died 22 days after Tootsie died, and that's a big loss for our community.
Thank you for bringing that to our attention. Our thoughts and prayers with the
Mercer family.
Okay, any other comments?
Coming from the meeting that we had in Charleston, I'm real proud of the communication our superintendents in Region 8 have had, because I think we're way ahead of the learning curve for the rest of the state. When you're talking about going to cooperatives, I mean, they were bringing up stuff we did months ago. And I think the key to the whole thing is the communication our superintendents have had, and sitting down and talking and saying, I need this service, I don't need this service. They were talking about doing a needs inventory. Y'all did a needs inventory months ago.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Or services inventory, whatever you want to call it.
Okay, so pursuant to West Virginia law, I'll entertain a motion to go to executive session for personnel issues.
Yes, sir.
Okay. We have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night.